I'm Mikki, life and relationship coach specializing in emotional regulation. If you're seeking emotional balance, you are in the right place. Go ahead and hit like and subscribe. And if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, the link is below. Let's get into it. How to identify your triggers in relationships. Okay, so I get this question so much. When I tell you, people are always asking me, like, what do I do when I'm triggered? And that's kind of like a buzzword that we hear a lot about, oh, he's triggering or she's triggering. I want to really break that down because a lot of times we put the trigger on the other person. And the trigger is your responsibility. So you would not be triggered if the trigger wasn't there. So you have to first take inventory of what your triggers are. Why are you being triggered? You should really start asking yourself the question, why does this bother me? Instead of this person is triggering me, they know that this was gonna get on my nerves and this, that, and the third. No, it's more so what information can you gather from the fact that you are having an emotional response to something that was said or done. And once we take full responsibility for our own triggers and you identify what those triggers are, that's the first step, because now you're not just in this sitting duck situation where you're waiting for someone to someone does something to you and you're just like caught off guard. The minute it happens, you'll be able to be like, let me give myself a beat, let me give myself a pause. And that's really the next thing you want to do. Once you have identified the trigger, you want to create space between you and the external environment, the thing that is happening that you are triggered by. And instead of just responding right away, take a breath, take a pause, give yourself a moment to gather yourself so that your brain can cognitively catch up to what is happening in your body. Because when you're triggered, you have a physical sensation, right? You might get hot, flustered, you might start sweating, you might be like, your face might get screwed up, all kinds of stuff starts happening. So once you realize that those things are happening, now you can say, okay, that hit a nerve, that struck a nerve, that's a pothole for me. And then you take a moment, you take a breath, and you pause, and then you ask yourself, how do I want to respond? So as an emotional regulation coach, I always tell my clients, you want the emotion to come up. So it's not about not feeling the emotion. You need to feel the emotion so that you can get the information. The information is inside of that emotion, is inside of your body. If you don't allow that energy to come up and to tell you what it's trying to tell you, it's gonna keep coming back. So every time that trigger comes back up in another situation with another person, another relationship, you are going to have those same emotions come up until you actually deal with why it's triggering to you. So if there is nothing to heal, you won't be triggered. That's really important. Now that doesn't mean it doesn't bother you or you don't have, I'll put it to you like this. If somebody came up to me and was like, you so stupid, you are just so dumb, it wouldn't even register to me because I know for a fact I'm not dumb. But if someone came up to me and was like, girl, you really you would be so fly if you just lost 30 more pounds, I would be like, what? Oh my gosh. Because there is a part in me that believes that. So I couldn't be triggered by or offended. That's a good way to know that you are being triggered. When you are in offense, that is a trigger. So take note of that. And it always has some vein of truth in the trigger, because you could not be triggered if there was not something about what was said or done that resonated on the inside of you. It goes to either I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm unlovable, I don't belong here. It's triggering something on the inside of you, or it wouldn't exist. Just like if somebody comes up to me and calls me dumb, I'm not even gonna respond to that. I'm gonna be like, okay girl, whatever, right? So the idea here is that you are able to give yourself a moment to decide how you want to react. I still might go off on you, right? but I'm going to consciously decide the level I'm going to go off on you based on how healed I am, right? So I'm not telling you not to respond, but I am telling you to think about what your response is going to be. Sometimes there are certain situations where it might call for a harsher approach. You might have to really assert a boundary, and you might have to say something with a whole straight face and with your chest, and that is okay. But always remember that when you are triggered, the trigger is within you. This person may not even know that they have triggered you. This person may not have any inclination that you are offended, or that the way that you took it, and yes, I'm saying the way that you took it, because that same thing could have been said to someone else who doesn't have that trigger, and it would have been straight over their head. So it is about your perception. It's about how you are viewing what has been said. So think about that. If I could say the same thing to 500 people and 50 of those people are triggered by what I said, is it what I said, or is it that what I said triggered something inside of those 50 people? Well, 450 people weren't triggered. So we have to ask ourselves some questions about that. And it's not okay to just put our emotional baggage onto other people. It's our responsibility to do our own healing and to do our work, so that when we get into relationships, we're not expecting that this person has to walk on eggshells to please us, that this person has to act a certain way for us to be happy. That is exhausting. And nobody wants to be in a relationship with someone who you have to tiptoe around. So my advice is to understand what is happening when you feel the sensation. Also, don't suppress it. When you feel it, take the moment and decide, okay, I need to say something about this. How do I want to address this? And when do I need to address it? Because everything doesn't have to be addressed in the moment. Put a pin in it, come back to it. Once you have come down off of the emotion of how you were feeling about what was said or done, reacting in the moment is almost never a good idea, right? Because 9 times out of 10, when you're reacting just based on how you feel, you're going to lash out. You're going to probably say something that you don't mean. And now you're adding offense to the offense. So now it's just, I'm trying to hurt you because you've hurt me. And there's a conversation I've always had when I was in the corporate arena, which is there is intent and there's impact. You can have good intent and have a negative impact. And that is very often what happens with triggers. I could say something to you completely with good intent, and it still comes off offensive, and it still triggers something in you. That doesn't mean that the person is off the hook. That just means that you have to be able to communicate exactly what was said that you took offense to. There's nothing wrong with saying to someone, I was offended when you said X, Y, and Z, but also taking your responsibility that the reason you are offended has less to do with what the person said or did that's in front of you, and more that this has probably happened to you in the past. And so because this is a situation that has happened in the past, you are now taking the value of what happened in the past and bringing that to this present moment. So taking 100% responsibility for how you feel and not just pushing that off onto the other person. Long-term relationships are interesting because our partners typically know the things that can get under our skin. I've been married for 8 years. I know the things that are gonna push his buttons. He knows the things that are gonna push my buttons. And also, just because I know some of those things doesn't mean that there aren't new things. Doesn't mean that there aren't things that I'm not aware of or I'm not privy to. And of course, I'm not just trying to stomp all over his feelings, and he's not just trying to intentionally hurt me. But when you are doing life in close proximity to a person, those opportunities are plentiful. And so instead of me putting it on him to be like, you know what, he should know that that's one of my spots. No, it doesn't need to be. I don't want that to be a trigger for me. I want to clean that up so that I'm not putting the onus on anyone that I love in my life to not have to act in a certain way. And so as you are thinking about what triggers you, my best advice is to please take inventory of what your triggers are. How does your body feel when you are triggered? Give yourself a pause. Give yourself an opportunity to decide how you want to react. And also give yourself forgiveness and compassion for having this trigger and for allowing it to be inside of you for this long. But there's still an opportunity to heal this. Now that you are aware that it's there, you can do the work to actually heal what needs to be healed so that you can move on with your life, and you can have a much better loving relationship, not only with your romantic partners, but even in friendships, because we get triggered in friendships too. Nobody talk about that, but we get triggered in friendships as well. And so thinking about all of those interpersonal relationships, parents, co-workers, not just, husband, wives, lovers, those types of people are the folks that are triggering us. You can be triggered by somebody in the grocery store. So anytime you're triggered, it's your responsibility to understand why you are triggered and then take the necessary actions. And that might mean getting support. That might mean finding a coach or a therapist or someone to support you. So if you are someone who really needs help identifying what your triggers are, figuring out a game plan for how to heal them, I'm available. So click the link below. You can get a free call with me and we can talk about how we can work together. Until next time, thank you so much. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to see more of this content. See you soon. If you enjoyed this content, make sure you like, subscribe, and share with a friend. And also, if you're interested in working one-on-one, there is a link below. Make sure you click that link and book some time with me. I would love to support you. And find me on social. I'm Get Mikki Bay on all platforms. That's GetMikkibey on all platforms.